The best movies of the 80s. Well, the way I look at it anyways, right? So I was thinking about when everything's best movies, right? It's always like, it's the hard dramas, it's the it's when the science fiction movies, right? Those sorts of things. But I'm thinking like, man, the ones that stand out for me from the 1980s, to me, those are the best movies of the 80s, and that's what we're going to talk about, right? I'm going to, so yeah. And I encourage you, if you disagree or if I miss some or if you want to cut some out, put it in the comments. It's just a fun little list to say, like, there's some good movies that don't get enough love. So let's talk about them a little bit. I'm Corey, the Unemployable Counsellor. If you're new to the channel, thanks for checking this out. If you've been here before, well, thanks for coming back. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, and share everywhere. I'm on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, and I'm an old man already. It's crazy. All right. Anyways, enough of that stuff. So, the first movie I think of when I think of the 1980s, right? And I'm not looking at Top Gun. I can't remember if I've seen Top Gun. But I will say this. I remember Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Who remembers that movie I remember with my favorite Martian was the teacher, Mr. Hand, and he was bantering with Sean Penn as Spicoli. I remember that clearly, and I remember the end of the movie when he saves him, right? Like when he goes in there and what's his name? Judge Reinhold gets robbed, right? And of course he foils the robbery, right? And he's like, Anyways, it was a good show. Very, very, very good show. I know Amanda likes. What was her name? Phoebe Coates? I can't remember. Yeah, I know. Settle down. All right. And then there's movies like Clue. I don't know if anyone remembers Clue, but you had Madeline Kahn, Martin Mull, Christopher Lloyd, Michael McKean. You had Leslie Ann Warren. You had Tim Curry, and you had Colleen Camp as the French maid, right? And it was just like the game. It had multiple endings, right? Don't spoil it for anybody, but it's worth it just for the banter, right? Like, and it's just the stupidest things where Martin Mull is Colonel Mustard. So he's like, oh my God, does anyone want a drink? Yeah. So he grabs his glass, he pours like 2 drinks and puts it down, and then he's got 4 glasses there, and he just throws it all over the glasses, and he just walks away, right? Like, it was just like, it's so stupid and ignorant, but it's just funny. Again, I remember those kind of things. And Colleen Camp looked pretty good in that maid's outfit. But anyways, right? That was pretty good. And then, of course, there's movies like Beverly Hills Cop. That was pretty good. Later on, though, my favorite run and gun silly comedy of the cops is probably Tango and Cash. That movie is so bad it's good. Kurt Russell, he's a golden god. That guy he is amazing. I tell you. Like, oh man, Escape from New York, which I think was 1981. So I was like, there you go. Influential movies. That's one that I'll still watch, and it's like, Lee Van Cleef is in it. And the whole movie, it's like they call him Pliskin, and he's like, call me Snake. Then at the end, he's like, good job, Snake. And he goes, call me Pliskin. Like, it's just like, The Thing, except for The Exorcist, which was made in the 70s. I tell you, The Thing was a really, oh man, that was a good horror show. Again, Kurt Russell and Keith David. And I won't spoil it for you, but it's pretty good. Practical effects, John Carpenter. That was a pretty good show. And it's movies like that, I think, more or less kind of shape, for me anyways, as I start looking at some, like the ones that really stand out for me are those kind of movies. There's one I remember going to the theater, seeing with my dad. It was a Knull or Null, right? But it had a K in it. That was the worst fucking movie ever, right? And then another one but it was great, was Raising Arizona with Nicolas Cage and what's that? Oh man, I can't remember her name. I can see her in my face. She was in that Superman versus Batman debacle. No, I can't remember. Mando, go look that up. So yeah, no, it was it was those kind of shows. And I remember seeing some real bad ones too, like Moon Over Parador, and I don't know, Richard Dreyfuss, man. I don't know what happened to that guy. But there was that, and there's movies like One Crazy Summer, right? Something, and you had John Cusack, you had Bill Murray's brother, you had Bobcat Goldthwait, you had some other guy that was in Heartbreak Ridge, which is an under. If you haven't seen Heartbreak Ridge, Clint Eastwood, you just see that movie. I'll watch that movie right now. Right? He has some pretty. It's kind of like if you know, because it was 84 or 83, somewhere in there. So I think that if you go, it's almost like the man in Gran Torino could be that guy if you watch that movie. Because oh man, he's just like, and he gets and he really doesn't like Mario Van Peebles in that show. But you should go check it out. It's a good movie. And then right, and I'm not going to go into like the Dirty Harry movies or anything like that because I like Clint, but I think they got progressively worse. The one that stuck with me was I'm going to talk about. Yes, is the one was it. Oh man, was it Sudden Impact? The one where the girl was assaulted and then she went for revenge and she was shooting everyone in the genitals and he was. I think that's the one where with Sandra Locke. Oh, what the hell was it? Because he had Dirty Harry, he had Magnum Force. The Deadpool was the last one. You had Sudden Impact. Oh man, and there's another one in there. The Enforcer, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I think it was Sudden Impact where they're at the carnival, and there's that. Oh, and they had that real like manly type woman, and she's just brawny, and she's just like she acted like a trucker. Nah, or like no, that's not fair to say, but she acted like those stereotypical redneck kind of guys that's always scratching their crotch and they like, gawking and it just yeah. That was that. Would creep me out a little. Not creep me out as weird, but those movies are a little weird. But Clint Eastwood is pretty good. But I remember that one for sure. And of course, there's Back to the Future, and there's some big ones. But I'm not touching sci-fi or that kind of stuff. I'm just thinking like movies like One Crazy Summer, like I said, had Demi Moore was in it. Demi Moore was pretty cute, and it had the worst scene ever. It was one of those. It was like a teenage comedy, but wasn't like raunchy like a lot of the ones like Diner and Porky's and shit like that, right? So it's kind of like those kind of movies, you know. But I do think you have those ones, right? And it had a scene in it where Bill Murray's brother is buried to the head in the sand, and they're like, "Oh no, don't leave me here." Well, hold on, we'll be right back. Here, we'll put this chair over your head to give you some shade. So, as of course, you can see what will happen through just the deductive reasoning skills. It's like, what's going to occur here as they put a chair over this helpless man's bare head, exposed head. Right, of course, this dude comes and sits down, and he's got like a bucket of chili and a bucket. Like it's just like, and of course, hilarity ensues because that's how that works. I know Mando thinks that's a little lowbrow. He also doesn't like puns. That's another story. Nah, I know, exposing all your secrets. Um, just things like that, right? Like it was pretty good, you know. Guy gets trapped in a Godzilla costume and ends up can't get out, and he freaks out because he has claustrophobia, and he starts running, and he stomps over like the sand town that they had spent like the whole summer building. Just weird shit like that, right? There was of course Revenge of the Nerds, which if anyone did anything in that movie today, they'd all be put in jail and arrested. If you watch it now, you got to look it through the lens of 1984, I guess. Sophomoric humorist style. I don't know. I tried to make that sound good. Anyways, those come on, Rando. Because I remember the first one. It's still funny, but I mean, like, it's so like it's almost like a guilty pleasure where it's like no one should. It was just one of those movies from the '80s that just was big, and it had lots of big people in it. John Goodman, one of his first movies, right? Ted McGinley, Robert Carradine, the dude from ER, right? Curtis Armstrong, who's still funny. He's great in shows today. Also in Risky Business with Tom Cruise. That was pretty good, but I was never was never a big Tom Cruise fan at that point. Mando, come on. All right, right. It was more or less kind of like, there's movies that cause I liked him. He was good. Like I never. Everyone talks about The Outsiders, but The Outsiders isn't exactly. Oh, let's watch it right now. Like it's not like that. Same with Werewolf in London, which was another one. Where it was kind of like one of those movies where it's like everybody kind of liked, but no one watched. You know what I mean? There's those kind of shows, and like, but Tom Cruise, right? He had Risky Business because Rebecca the Morning was pretty good. Let's be honest. And then he was like All the Right Moves. Um, he made a few. There was Cocktail, right? Like, and then it started to build up from there. And I think Born on the 4th of July, which is probably, oh man, that was a good one. That was a pretty good movie. He might be a warlock or whatever it is they say he is, but I that dude can make a movie. Like you go back, Born on the 4th of July was a pretty good show, and then I'm not super big on car racing movies except Talladega Nights. That came much later, just because his dad cracked me up. But like I was Days of Thunder, right, and all those kind of shows that just kind of blossomed. And I'm gonna do my own thing on the Mission Impossible when that last one comes out, because I tell you, those are my favorite movies for a long, long time. But I struggled with the whole Scientology weird shit, which is weird because it has no impact on me. But when you know stuff about people that may be true, it kind of influences whether you watch, right? It's like, hey, no one says, hey, let's have a Kevin Spacey movie marathon over at my place this weekend. Yay! Right? No one says that because that doesn't happen. It changes your view of the body of work, despite what they're in that's good. That's what makes it kind of difficult. It's like Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen made a movie, I think it was 89. I might be cheating, it might be 90, but it was called The Rookie. It was him and Clint Eastwood. And I remember that one, and man, I really liked that one. Raul Julia was in it. He was awesome. That guy was just great. And it was, but it was different. It was kind of like, it almost could have been a Clint Eastwood movie if they had like kind of like toughened the up a little bit. But you find out, he was like a race car driver. He's twice divorced. Like he's not Harry Callahan, but he's just like he's kind of similar to him. And then Charlie Sheen is a rookie who has PTSD from an accident with his brother when he was a kid. They were jumping over the roofs, right, and stuff. And it was a really good. Like Charlie Sheen was a good actor, man. You think of Platoon from '88, you know, like he had man, he's on his own path. But man, you look at Robert Downey Jr. and you think, man, because Charlie Sheen had that kind of talent. Look at 2.5 Men. He basically played himself, but man, he was great. He was funny. But anyways, Men at Work was I think 1990, and it's still a classic with him and Emilio Estevez. But talked about that at length in other videos that you should check out if you're watching this far. You're clearly invested. Right? So there's those kind of shows, and I'm thinking too. Like I remember seeing UHF. I remember UHF coming out the same weekend. I think was it Batman, like the Michael Keaton Batman, which I went and saw. People went to school with Bat logos shaved in their heads, and they all had the T-shirts. I think I had a T-shirt that I wore every day for like 2 years, the Bat logo on it. Right, that kind of stuff. I remember that. I never got the Bat tattooed in the back of my head. That's just, I don't know. I like kids be kids, but come on. Anyways, that's just weird. Anyways, but no, there's that. That was huge. Oh my gosh, that movie was huge, and I remember it was packed. Same with it wasn't as big, but man, Dick Tracy. I like Dick Tracy quite a bit with Warren Beatty. I think Madonna's a bit of a whore. I don't know. I don't know her personally. It just gives off that vibe. I don't know. I could be wrong there. But no, it had Al Pacino, right? You had Dustin Hoffman. You had, oh man, he died. He was one of the original Ocean's 11. Oh, I can't remember his name, and I apologize for that. But you should look it up and check out the first Ocean's 11. I'm talking about Danny Ocean being Frank Sinatra. You had Brad Pitt was Dean Martin, right? You had you had yeah, you had Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Bishop, or Joey Bishop, pardon me, Peter Lorre. Oh man, the list went on. Great movie, but he was one of them, and I can't remember his name, and I apologize for that because I love that movie. I'm going to spoil it for you because it's 70 years old, and no one's going to watch it anyway. When they're sitting in there at the end and they got away with it, but the money was in the caskets and it got cremated, and they're sitting there and they're looking at it, and you can see it all burning. And then they go, Ocean's 11. Wah, 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 wah. Yeah, that was, yeah. Wow, beautiful movie. Filmed beautifully in Las Vegas, like old Las Vegas. I think that if there's a cool place to see, like, I think that would be one of the stops you'd have to make. 1950s Las Vegas. I'm talking like at the height of it all, right? Anyways, you see Liberace at 6, and you go see, the Rat Pack at 10. That would be like, what a double header. That's just insane. Anyways, but no, so weird. You got all those kind of shows, right? So I mean, like, going back to the Tom Cruise ones for me, like, man, I never got into Cocktail. I always thought, I would have been, how old was I? I think I was 12. It's like, no, I'm not watching that. It's like, ooh, and they're like footballs. But no, get all good movies. Yeah. Now, everyone should check out, like, it's kind of fun to kind of look, because then you remember stuff that was happening around that time. Or at least for me, it's like, oh, I remember this, right? But like, like there's the really bad Jaws movies with Michael Caine. I saw that in the theater. That movie it was bad, right? Um, just movies of that. I remember seeing Firewalker with Chuck Norris, pardon me, and Lou Gossett Jr. And I can't remember. It wasn't Heather Thomas. No, it wasn't Heather Thomas. It wasn't Heather Locklear either. TJ Hooker, man. Melrose Place. Yeah, she's awesome. Man, it was someone along those lines. But it was a movie where there were bounty hunters. And, it was like a buddy comedy. Oh my gosh. Firewalker. Yeah, Firewalkers, I believe. And it was just like, oh man, I can still see the cover, the poster in my head in my old theater. But there's like movies like that. Those are the type of movies I can remember is like, oh, I can't believe, like Dolph Lundgren made Punisher in like 1989. It's like, oh, this movie is horrible, right? But you kind of remember that kind of stuff. But it was those kind of movies, right? That kind of humor, right? There was Police Academy, right? The first couple were pretty good. Then they made 8 of them, right? They really burned that into the ground, right? But they were funny movies. Um, like I said, you had 48 Hours was great, right? Right, like, another 48 Hours, not so much, but 48 Hours is pretty good, right? Trading Places. Like, I mean, there's a lot of movies like that, but there's some kind of hidden gems too when you kind of look back, and that's what I'm starting to realize now. Like, I used to think you watch old movies and you think to yourself, it's kind of sad if you think about it. Most of these people probably aren't with us anymore, right? And I mean, but I think it's a testament to just like, even though it's a fictionalized version of life based off of something else, but you're getting a glimpse just of kind of what was going on by either how it's filmed, right, the way they speak, just the whole directional aspect of it. And I mean, like, that's where, and it's a way, it's a celebration that even though those people aren't here anymore, they're still alive, entertaining people, right? I used to think before, it's like, oh, it used to kind of bother me, right? Like Caddyshack, you find out stuff like, oh, it's like, like Ted Knight in that movie is one of the funniest characters like that ever. He's just awesome. Ted Knight is just awesome, and him and Rodney Dangerfield. I might watch that right now. I'm not a huge Chevy Chase fan, but I love Fletch, and I loved him as Ty Webb in the first Caddyshack. It was pretty good, right? And you can't go wrong with Fletch. Fletch was an awesome movie. My favorite part in the movie, the one thing that stood out in my mind as a kid, is where they threw him up against the wall and he's frisking him and he's at his knees like, "What is this?" And he goes, "My dick." Right? That stupid, immature humor. But that movie was really good. I quite enjoyed that. And I mean, that's the thing, right? Like I mentioned earlier, I think Dragnet, right, which is, Dan Aykroyd had that nailed. It was just such a weird. It was about pagans, and it was like had the great Oh man, Christopher Plummer, right? Great Canadian actor. He passed away, but he was like the villain in the show, right? Um, Spoiler alert. Just those kind of shows, and you don't see those kind of movies too much anymore. It's like, oh, this is awful, right? But like you think like every once in a while I'll watch stuff like from you got like the Stooges, or you have like with Buster Keaton and some of the weird like the stuff they did back then with like Harley, like jumping off a train, like just how they did that stuff, or when the building falls and he's walking and he goes through the open window, like that was like, that was like, there was no special effects there. That was them doing that, like that kind of stuff. Like, there's one called Enemy Mine that had Dennis Quaid, right, where him and Lou Gossett Jr., who was an alien he was fighting, were trapped and they fell, or they were fighting each other and they ended up marooned on this planet and then they rely on each other. And then the guy, because his Lou Gossett Jr.'s lizard species is asexual, I think, not asexual. But anyways, they're able to generate like their own offspring, and that's what he did. And it was a good movie. It's a pretty good show. That was a good movie. Inner Space, anything with Martin Short in it was pretty good, right? I was never a big Splash fan, but I know that was a pretty big, huge movie, or big, right? Um, Remember him and Bosom Buddies? That was freaking horrible show. Yeah, Young Guns 1 and 2 I talked about already, but those are ones to go. And I'm going on and on. I'm just rambling, but you know what? There's lots of fun talking about movies because one thing can take you to another, and like I said, you start remembering stuff that happened in the past, but you start thinking about things that happened around then. Like I remember going to this show with my dad. You know, uh, I remember one time I went on a blind date with this girl, and she smelled like formaldehyde, and then I was like, and I remember asking her if she worked in a she worked in a funeral home by chance, and she didn't like that. And then we saw Miss Congeniality, and it was the longest 2 hours ever. And then we left, shook hands, and my eye, and the whole time it was like someone sprayed my eyes with bleach. It was like so powerful, and I do think when it's that powerful, you should expect a question or two. But, anyways, everyone have a great night. If you made it this far, congratulations. But you must find the jade monkey before the next full moon. Okay, never mind. All right, thank you very much. Like I said, like, share, subscribe. Um, just like it's Saturday night, we're having a little bit of fun. We're just hanging out and talking with a very chill and unemployable counselor and Mando the Wonder Dog who needs to go outside. All right, take care, everyone. Be safe, have fun, enjoy your night. All right.